Welcome in, everybody, to another Dynasty rookie profile where we are trying to dive deep into these rookie prospects, looking at players, wide receivers, tight ends, and just going deep into the numbers, trying to find who's good, who's not, what we like, what we don't like, in order to better equip yourself when it comes to your Dynasty rookie drafts. So you can find steals in the second, third, fourth round, the Tank Dells, the Puka Nakuas, whoever it is. We're looking for guys that, of course, the top 6, 7, 8 guys, we all know who they're going to be. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about going a little bit deeper here, trying to find the next player that's going to help win us our dynasty leagues because if you hit on a second rounder, a third rounder, a fourth round dynasty rookie pick, it helps your team and goes such a long way. So today we're looking at wide receiver Troy Franklin out of Oregon. Now, Troy Franklin, probably a first round pick in the NFL draft, but we'll see. So he's not a super deep dive, but he is one of those late first round picks or mid to late first round picks in dynasty rookie drafts. And you got to make a decision between him and a couple other guys. And so we're talking about today, Troy Franklin, things we like, things we don't like. And I'm going to share with you guys here the little document I have here, profile of Troy Franklin. Where can I put myself? I'm going to put myself up there. And I'm going to remove this banner here. So there you have it, guys. You can see a little bit of Troy Franklin here. Again, we're going to go through the numbers, what they mean, and talk a little bit about what I've seen on tape as well. So Troy Franklin, again, out of Oregon. He's 6'3", 187 pounds. It is February 17th. The combine hasn't happened yet, so we don't know exact measurements and things like that. So that's the estimated 6'3", 187. Size is fine. Obviously, 6'3" is a good height. 187, maybe it's a little light. It's a little bit of a more lean build, I guess. But, 190, 200, that's kind of where you want your receivers to be. He had a huge 2023 year. Obviously, Oregon had a big year themselves offensively with Bo Nix, and just that team in general was on fire. So he had a big year. Troy Franklin was the main receiver, 81 catches, over almost 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns. Projected, according to Mock Draft Database, as a late first-round pick. So Mock Draft Database kind of compiles all the mock drafts, or a lot of mock drafts out there, and gives you the rankings in terms of what they're being mocked at in 3,000 mock drafts. Now, I have seen several mock drafts that has Troy Franklin as a second, third round pick. I don't see it. I see him being a first round guy. So to me, I'm pretty high on Franklin. So I really like him. You can see here some numbers diving a little bit deeper into the advanced stats, the yards per route run, which is always a pretty good measurement of how good a receiver is. And how protective they are. So you go back and look at, the CD Lambs and Justin Jeffersons, Tyreek Hills, they're always at the top of this. Obviously, this is college. 2.63 is a solid number. That's for his career. By the way, his single season high, which was last year, was over 3, well over 3, I believe, like 3.4 or 3.3, which is a crazy high number. But he averaged in his career, his 3 years at Oregon, 2.63. We want to see it north of 2.9, I'd say, is a solid number. But again, 3.32 last year in his big year in college. So keep that in mind. ADOT 12.8, his average depth of target. That's a good number. We don't want to see it too high. We don't want to see it too low, because then that just means you're getting a bunch of dump offs. If it's too high, it means you're potentially more of just a deep threat. We want to see it in this, I'd say, 11 to 14 range in college. College, it's always a little bit higher than what it is in the NFL in general. But yes, at 12.8 average depth of target, that stayed pretty consistent throughout his 3 years at college. His drop percentage was 8%. Now, I will say he's had 2 years of 10 or more. Last year, his drop percentage was 10%. And his rookie year, his drop percentage was 14.3%. Now, his rookie year, his first year in college. Now, that was on 32 targets, so it's a little inflated. It was 3 drops, right? So 3 drops on 32 targets, it can be skewed just a little bit. But last year it was at 10. Like to see this number south of 7%. If you just look at, and I've gone back and looked at every fantasy relevant receiver, which translates to really good receivers in the NFL since 2010. And basically their college drop percentage for almost all of them was like, there's very few of them that were over 9-10%. Most of them are under 7%, or about half of them were under 7%. So we like to see that number under 7%. Can it be fixed? Sure. Obviously, the more targets you get, the more drops you're going to have. The raw number isn't as important as the percentage is. So 10% last year, a little bit too high for my liking. It's definitely a negative for Troy Franklin there. Yards after catch, 5.5. That's solid. He's solid after the catch. He's not the most amazing receiver after the catch, but he's just a solid receiver after the catch. Contested catch percentage at just under 38%. Again, like to see this a little bit higher. Contested catches in general, we want to see them around 50%, I would say. He's at 38%, so pretty well below that 50% mark. So like to see more, but something that I've been looking more into, and something that that's really interesting me, is the CTT percentage, that last one here. This one right here, the CTT percentage. This is contested target percentage. So how many of your targets are being contested? And to me, now this isn't for every target, but to me, if this number is low, that means a lot of it's due to your route running, your elusiveness, your breaks in and out of routes. If you have really good route running, if you have really good breaks at the top of a route, you're probably going to be open a lot more. You're going to, fake out the defender and things like that. So obviously there's other situations like behind the line of scrimmage passes. Those can't be contested. So you have to take it. You have to look at how they're being targeted. But you think over the course of a 3-year college career, and we're talking about, over 200 targets, it kind of evens out. So I like this number for Troy Franklin, 17%. Under 15% is what I really, really, really like. Obviously, that's really hard to do. Under 20% is still really good to me. When we start getting to over 20, over 25% of your targets being contested, that just means you're not getting separation, not getting open. So like to see this number, 17% for Troy Franklin. Again, snaps by position. He played mostly out wide, did play in the slot. I think he can play in the slot in the NFL, which is what you want to see, right? 2 wide receiver sets. You're going to be out wide. When the 3 or 4 wide receivers come in, you'd like to see your stud player go into the slot just because the matchups are better for them. So a player that can kind of play in both the slot and out wide is the most valuable fantasy player. All the studs, the Justin Jeffersons, the CeeDee Lambs, they play all over the field. So we like to see that. And I think Troy Franklin, even though he didn't do it much at Oregon, I think he can play in the slot in the NFL. So not too worried about that. Now, something real quick before we get into a couple other things I don't like. Career dominator. This is the percentage of his team's passing offense. How much of it went to Troy Franklin? 22% over his 3 years at Oregon, which is it's good. We talked about it in the Xavier Worthy video. If you haven't checked that out, you should. Most fantasy receivers, fantasy relevant receivers, again, which translates to good receivers in the NFL. Since 2010, I looked at I think there's 78 fantasy relevant receivers. And again, my bar for fantasy relevant is 2 years of a top 36 receiver. So my bar is very low. 78 receivers since 2010 have had at least 2 seasons of being a top 36 receiver or higher. A lot of those guys, if you go back and look at their career college dominators, they were north of 25%. I think the average for those receivers was 30%. So we really like to see north of 25. We really like to see around 30% career dominator. Obviously, Troy Franklin, 22%. I will say this, though. His first year is really heavily bringing him down. His first year in college was at 8%, whereas his second and third year in college was 27 and 31 respectively. So you average that out, we're closer to 30% if we look at just his second and third year in college. But I did look at all 3 in his freshman year, is really bringing him down at 8%. You can see his single high season was at 31%. We like to see that. His breakout age, once again, is the age in which you put up a season for a receiver, that is, the age at which you put up 20% or more of the team's passing offense, receiving offense, right? He was 19 years old when he did it. We love to see that. And once again, guys, of those 78 fantasy relevant receivers that I looked at since 2010, only 8 of them had a breakout age in college of older than 20 years old. Only 8 guys. It's a little bit of a red flag if you have a breakout age of 21, 22, or 23 years old. It's obviously a lot easier to be 22 years old and dominating in college when you've been in college for 3 years, dominating 19-year-olds. Whereas it's way more impressive for an 18-year-old or 19-year-old to be dominating 20, 21-year-old defenders, in their first or second year in college. So again, 8 of the 78 fantasy relevant receivers since 2010, only 8 of them have had a breakout age of older than 20 years old. So all the other ones were 20 or younger. So that's 10%. Now, I will say this with COVID, it's kind of, I think, mucked things up a little bit. COVID has, just because I've been noticing a lot of these top prospects are a little bit older in terms of their breakout age. So I think COVID kind of messed with that a little bit. But again, we like to see it from Troy Franklin, 19%. And then his PFF grade, his best in a single season, best PFF receiving grade, 87.3. That is really, really good. We love to see that. So Troy Franklin, overall, I really like him. I like what the numbers are saying, the advanced analytics are saying, the yards per route run last year, his contested target percentage, his dominator, his breakout age. These are positive signs. Now, when I watch him on film, he's really fast. A lot of these guys actually are a lot of these first round prospects are like 4.3 or better. So Troy Franklin predicted to run in the mid 4.3s, which is awesome to see. He's really good against man coverage is what I noticed. Obviously, man coverage is being played a lot less in college, in the NFL as well, but it's nice to see a receiver who can beat man coverage. Because you don't want to have a weakness. He can beat zone and he can beat man. Some receivers are much better at zone. Some are much better at man. It's nice to see a receiver that can do both, and I think Troy Franklin can do both. He was really, really good against man coverage. So even though he's a little bit more of a slender, slight build, I don't think that's going to be a big problem if teams want to muscle him up a little bit. Again, elite speed. I think he's going to run in the mid 4.3s if he runs the 40 time at the combine. Just really productive red zone guy, 14 touchdowns in 2023. I love his route running. I think he just very smooth transitionally, or his transitions in his routes is just very, very smooth. It's kind of effortless to a certain extent. You watch some guys and you're just like, they're just a little slow at the top of their routes, and they kind of round their routes, like hitch routes or slant routes or whatever. They're kind of rounded, and that gives the defender time to get back into the play. Whereas Troy Franklin, Xavier Worthy was another guy. Their routes, man, they're just really, really good at the top of their routes. They're not rounded. They're just sharp cuts. I really love to see that. He was really good in deep and in the intermediate and deep level of the field. He was actually better in the intermediate and deep level than he was like in the short game or the behind the line of scrimmage game. So, we want to see them good at all levels, but a guy that can consistently win deep and at the intermediate level, I think is a good sign. So if he can get the right quarterback that can push the ball deep, a Josh Allen, just saying, would be a really nice spot for him. And yeah, he did well on both the outside and the slot. Didn't play a lot in the slot, but last year that is, but still relatively good. Now, a couple things, to be concerned about. Again, the drop percentage is something to be a concern about. 8% for his career, but 2 of his 3 seasons in college, they were over 10%. 2022, for whatever reason, was really, really low. It was, 3.2% in 2022. So that kind of brought that down a little bit. 2 of the other 3 last year in 2021, his first year, over 10%, including over 14% in his first year. So that's something to watch, drop passes. Again, we want to see it south of 7%. Another thing is he kind of dominated like worse competition. You look at his games against Washington. He had good games against Washington. The first game was 154 yards. Second game, 34 yards. I'd like to see a little bit more there. A team like Utah was one of his. He still had 99 yards, but for him, that's actually kind of a bad game, considering he was putting up 120 plus. So I think it's not a big deal. Like there was just a couple games where I'd like to see a little bit more, especially in that game against Washington, that conference championship game. And then his blocking is to be his run blocking is there's a lot to be what's the right phrase? There's just you want more out of him to see in the run blocking. And I know a lot of people are like, why does that matter for fantasy? Well, it gets you on the field more, and it's going to allow you to play in the slot more if you are a good blocker. So if you're a good blocker, they're going to put you in the slot more. If you're not, then you're going to be playing in the slot less. So, like to see some improvement there, but that's an area I think he can improve on. So overall, I really like Troy Franklin. I'm kind of back and forth on where he is for me in my rankings. He's definitely, obviously we have the top 3 receivers, Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, and Adunze in no particular order. And then we have guys like Troy Franklin, Brian Thomas, Keon Coleman, who are kind of in that late first round, early second round range for the most part. And, I think Troy Franklin might be my wide receiver 4. I kind of go back between him and Brian Thomas. Wide receiver 4 or 5. Xavier Worthy's up there as well. So really like him. I'm going to obviously watch the combine, things like that, see how it progresses in the offseason. And it's just a guy that I really, really like. I think he can be a number 1 receiver for a lot of teams. And there's a lot of good teams that need wide receivers at the back end of the draft. So that's all I have for you guys today. Another Dynasty rookie profile in for you. We'll be back with some more. As always, like and subscribe. Leave a comment if there's someone in particular you want me to do. I'd be happy to do that. And I will catch you guys next time.